Good morning, America. How are ya? Monday Morning Rail. Hi, I'm Denny Jelsma, and I'm at the world-famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum, and today is Monday, and you know what we do on Monday? You guessed it, we do show and tell. But before we get started, what I want to say is that the views of the show and tell that we do every morning, and myself, are not necessarily the views of the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum. We're totally separate, even though I'm a member, and some of the cast that do these shows are members. I just wanted to have that disclaimer that the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum has their own viewpoints on whatever. Now, with that being said, I want to first say thank you for the thousands of people that watch us every week. We did a show and tell last week, and we're over 11,000 views on Facebook. You could find us on two medias. We're on Facebook, and we're on YouTube. We get most of the views on Facebook, and we just thank you. Our special one that we did this past Friday with Richard, we're over 5,000. And so we just thank you. And I want to say a real quick shout out to three guys in Jacksonville, Florida. Richard from the another club here in town, he watched his favorite, and John Baselli, hello, and Dennis Larson, really appreciate it. And then there is Steve, who is with the North Florida Historical Society. We appreciate you watching and keeping number 2 straight all the time. So also I have my nephew and his wife, Eric. He's just got married, and his beautiful wife, Adrina. They're really closet railroad nerds, and I want to say hi. They watch us every week, and Eric is just an absolute unbelievable modeler. He's just one of the best, and he's a graphic artist. Now, what I want to say is that we're going to be at 2 big shows coming up, and that is Jelsma Graphics. Number 2 will be there with me. He's our cameraman, Greg Turn, and we're going to be at Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the weekend before Thanksgiving, and you will see we'll be giving away the What's Neat hats. We have a limited amount, so when you go to Milwaukee, stop by our booth and you'll get the Ken Patterson What's Neat hats. We have a few of those hats. And so then in the last weekend in January, we'll be in Amherst, Massachusetts, actually in West Springfield for the Big E. And that is, in my opinion, the biggest and the best train show. We've been there for 20-some years, same location. And I want to say hi to 2 Joeys, one from Massachusetts. Great guy. Hi, Joey. And thanks for watching. And Joy from New York. I sincerely appreciate your support. Now, Jelsma Graphics sponsors show and tell every week. Make sure that you go to jelsma.com, and we've been making railroad embroidery clothing for 40 years. And so all your embroidery clothing, club logos, hats, shirts, you name it, just like the What's Neat hat, go. And also you could see us on the Ken Patterson What's Neat show. Ken Patterson has a weekly show, and he has a monthly show, and I'm a frequent guest on that show, so you could see all of the Jelsma Graphic products. And with that being said, show and tell is going to start right now. Monday morning show and tell starts right now, and we have a very exciting show. It is about the Glamour Girls of Steam.
Now, Denny, I'm just a little confused, because last week you said you really didn't like Steam much, and we did a whole show on Steam, and now we have another one. That seems a little contradictory.
Well, Greg, I'm glad you asked that. I was born in an upper middle class family in the cornfields of Iowa. And with joy, I was taught that we should enjoy a lot of things. And once again, I was born in a lower middle class family in the soybeans of Iowa. And with joy, I was taught that we should enjoy both the steam and the diesel. And so with that said, I'm going to start explaining the Glamour Girls of steam. You know, in the coming out of the Depression, the railroads really had a problem with trying to get ridership back. And one of the things that they did is they dressed up their steam engines. You got to remember, diesels were not really big in the 30s and in the 40s. They really started coming out really after the war. Now, I'm going to show you a lot of different styles of how the railroads dressed up their steam engines to make them more attractive. And then when you take a look at some of these engines, would you rather ride behind an engine that was just black and dirty or one that had a lot of color? And the first one we're going to talk about is the Milwaukee. The Milwaukee put a lot of different paint schemes on their engines, and this was the Chippewa. And they just took a plain engine and they just put a lot of paint on it, and it's kind of like, you know, putting lipstick on a pig, in my opinion. But then they took it and they got into the Art Deco, and this is an Atlantic, a 4-4-2 wheel arrangement. And forgive me if I say some of these wheel arrangements wrong, but this engine here was very prevalent in the Midwest, and this thing would go 110, 120 miles an hour through Minnesota, Iowa, and Illinois, and it pulled all the Hiawatha's. And that was their trademark, was the Hiawatha, and boy, everybody knew that engine. Then the Chicago Northwestern got into the act, and they streamlined their 4-6-4, and just once again getting into the year of the Art Deco. And boy, this here, they pulled their famous 400s. And this was a very, very popular engine, and it was on all their posters. Then the Santa Fe, to pull their famous Super Chief, they came up with what they called the Blue Goose, and they took a 4-6-4, and they put a shroud on it, and they painted it, and boy, people came out in droves to see that. Now, the maintenance crews hated these, and the maintenance crews and the unions really ended up forcing the railroads to take off a lot of the extra shrouding, because it just took so much time and labor, and they just didn't like it. So the next engine was the Southern Pacific, and the Southern Pacific always said the most beautiful train in the world was their daylight trains. And this here is probably one of the most famous steam engines in the Art Deco era, because you saw them in all the Hollywood movies, and that was the Southern Pacific GS4s. And powerful engine, but they put a lot of fancy shrouding on it, and a bullet type style, and then they had the beautiful paint scheme. Then the Baltimore and Ohio, going into the east, they took their engines and made it, they had two different styles of streamed Art Deco, and this pulled the Cincinnatian. Then the C&O, which I just really love, the C&O came up, and they called the Yellow Belly. They had two paint schemes. It was the orange and the yellow, and they streamlined it, and they had corrugated stainless steel pulling their cars, and it was just an absolute gorgeous. And these were they assigned these trains, these engines, to their real hot shot trains. And boy, this is what they did with the C&O. Next, a little Glamour Girl I have is a small little workhouse of Lackawanna. Lackawanna had 2 or 3 different styles of what I call, once again, Glamour Girls. And they just took their engines and they did really a nice job with what they had to work with. Now, the Pennsylvania is really unique. They took their simple steam engines and put pinstriping around their tenders and just added a little bit of lipstick to it and made it a gorgeous engine. And you could just see how it kind of revolved. And this one here, the K4, just beautiful. And boy, they kept these things as clean as ever. Then they came and this was the first semi-streamlined steam engine. And they had the bullet nose, and boy, you saw it in films, and Pennsylvania was really. And then they had their totally Art Deco streamlined. Some of them called it the upside down bathtub, but different names. But boy, it was really, really a gorgeous. And then the N&W had their 611 style, and boy, that went into service on the N&W. It was really, really, once again, it had the bullet. Now, the New York Central took an engine that was just basically a plain Jane engine, and if you just kind of look at this Wabash here and how plain it is, although Wabash took this engine and they painted it blue for their banner blue, and you added stainless steel shrouding, and this is the Lowry scheme. And what they did is they had 2 of their engines, and this pulled the 20th Century Limited and their other crack trains. But this one here, I think with the stainless steel, because they had stainless steel bed cars for the Empire State Express that went from New York City to Buffalo and then all the way to Cleveland. This was inaugurated on a very famous day, on December the 7th, 1941, a day that Roosevelt said would live in infamy. It was really a shame. They inaugurated this thing at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and as we all know, Pearl Harbor happened about 6 hours before that, and it really took away from this fantastic engine, which was very sad that we entered into World War II. And so the New York Central had these 2 Glamour Girls. Now, the New Haven couldn't be outdone, and they cast their wheels, had the bullet, and this engine was constantly kept clean, and it was just absolutely gorgeous, and it pulled many of the famous trains. And once again, the Wabash just took a plain black engine, painted it, and made it stand out. The New York Central also came, and this was probably their first attempt that they did, was to the Commodore Vanderbilt. This is the only engine in the New York Central line that did not have a number. Every engine had a number. You say, how did they keep? It was called the Commodore. And it ran in the Midwest Ohio, and it had a beautiful shroud. The maintenance crews hated this shroud. It was very hard to do maintenance. But the Commodore Vanderbilt was an outstanding engine. And basically what it was was this engine here. The same engine was this really, the same engine. And it just think what the railroads could do. And part of that is that, especially during the war years, they weren't allowed to build a lot of steam engines. Now, one of the really nice engines that I like, and that is the Jersey Central, the Blue Comet, that went from New York to Atlantic City, and actually Hoboken, and they took a plane.
No, not Hoboken, Jersey City.
Jersey City, you're right. And they took a plane engine, painted it, put nice designs, put gold on the wheels, and boy, if you were anybody, you rode the Blue Comet. Then the Lehigh Valley, one of their most famous trains. They had two real famous trains, the John Wilkes and the Black Diamond, and they just put a beautiful shrouding, and they also put beautiful paint on it. And then the Canadians, and I believe this here was the engine that pulled the Royals when they came over and visited. I'm not a Canadian expert, but they really, the Canadians did a nice job of streamlining their steam engines. So that is basically the Glamour Girls, and these were really fancy Glamour Girls. And I hope you enjoyed it. And to answer the question, do I like steam or diesel? Hey, I have to admit, I liked really the Glamour Girls, but I like the big old steam, but I like both. I like both diesel and steam. And with that being said, I'd like to say that please get out and vote. No matter who you vote for, please get out and vote. When I was in my early 20s, I spent 8 years behind the Iron Curtain, and even today I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll remember the cruelty of the East German border guard baton. I still could smell the KGB's cigarettes when they interrogated you. My beautiful wife grew up in South America under a dictator, and I could not even comment about him. We have a member of our club that was wife that was born in Castro's Cuba. And so if you wonder why I have passion that I want you to get out and vote, and that's why. Please get out and vote. Now, with all that being said, that's the way it is at the world famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida, where the sun always shines and running trains is an absolute pleasure in peace and harmony.